Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Goodger.
You know what, you guys? Winter's heart really let us down in this one because it presented us this incredible opportunity for Elayne to be murdered and then didn't go through with it.
Unfortunately, she did not die.
Unfortunately, she did not die.
Yeah, my favorite character this week is the person who tried to murder Elayne.
Stop.
I know it's a group of very terrible dark friends, but it was would be a really big W for the team if we could knock her out.
It took me a little while to compute because the dark friends trying to kill her is part of an overall scheme to get what's his name? Hatchetface that's the description they always give him, and I can never remember his name because he has so many aliases. So that's just what I'm gonna call him.
Hatchetface.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to do this very elaborate scheme to get Hatchetface in charge of Elayne's bodyguard, or part of her bodyguard. Presumably they weren't specifically we're going to make him the captain of the bodyguard, although that did work out incredibly well in their favor.
I know!
And what a thing for Elayne to do, you know?
She's an idiot, for real, you guys.
No, we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, the fact that they have this elaborate plan that hinges on people trying to kill Elayne and then Hatchetface murdering those people.
Yeah.
And I was spent several minutes being which guys agreed to this suicide mission? You know? Until it finally hit me that probably Hatchetface lied to them.
Yeah.
And was just you guys are gonna go in and kill her.
Yeah.
And I'll be watching the door, you know? Yeah. And then he comes in and spears them or whatnot.
He yeets his sword through one of the... He throws it like a spear.
Yeah, which I mean is cool.
It sounds cool. I just don't know logistically if that's how swords work.
I mean, I feel like you could do it across if the room wasn't this big. If the room wasn't too big.
Okay, so I could hit someone by the printer.
Well, I mean, you'd still have to be pretty dang strong.
I mean, I specifically couldn't, but...
Yeah, if I were a strong man, I feel like I could throw a sword spear, but not across, you know. You can't be hiking that thing like a football.
Yeet.
Yeet. I am speaking like I have any authority on this subject. I do not. Despite my extensive research into swords, I have not researched the efficacy of sword throwing.
Apparently Robert Jordan didn't either. Or maybe he did. Maybe Robert Jordan is right.
I can't believe this dude killed 3 people.
Yeah.
I mean, except that they thought he was their friend, so...
Yeah, especially...
He really got in a sneak attack on them, but
because, all of them have, poison knives and stuff. We're introduced... This might not be the first time we're introduced to it, but we are... In my memory, this is the first time we are introduced to the fact that peaches are poisonous in the Wheel of Time world.
Oh, yeah.
And, the peach pit, in particular, is very poisonous.
I don't know why that is.
I know, and it's also very funny, because it's I'm sure at some point in history someone tried to eat the pit of a stone fruit and was like, no, this isn't going to work for me.
This is no good.
But they're like, oh, the peach pit will really get you. But will also the, fruit get... I guess.
Well,
peaches are just poisonous.
Peaches are just poisonous. Is it because they're a very, yonic fruit?
Robert Jordan was like, no vaginas here.
Yeah, it looks like a vagina. Only one thing in the Wheel of Time is allowed to look like a vagina.
And that is all of Tarvalon.
And that is the entirety of Tarvalon.
So we're not allowed to have peaches.
Yeah. Here's the plot, you guys. Here we get a cup of tea. That's the title of the chapter, so you just know that something is coming with a cup of tea. I mean, Or, someone like Katsuan will just be holding a cup of tea. Sometimes they just do that.
Yeah, Rosalind will be like, the chapter is titled A Pen.
A pen.
Because someone was holding a pen.
A knife. A child.
What do you have? A knife!
Elayne goes back to her room and gets dressed. We're introduced to her, old lady body servant.
Yeah.
From the pensioners' quarter. And Elayne goes out to her sitting room to have her midday meal.
Could we pause for a second on the midday meal?
Well, we're not there yet.
Okay. Oh, right. Nori comes in first. I'm so sorry, Halwyn Nori.
First we get the man, the myth, the legend, Halwyn Nori.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I almost forgot about
He's literally just standing there waiting with his little portfolio. And I'm like, my beloved. There he is. There he is. I've been waiting for you, Mr. Nori.
Mr. Nori.
To save us. As we referenced last week, Halwyn Nori is the first clerk to Rain Harfor's first maid.
Yeah.
Although, Nori seems to be, involved, if you're the first clerk, then presumably you're in charge of the palace finances and things like that, logistics, but Nori seems to be responsible for most of the stuff going on in Camelin at large.
Yeah.
So he's got a pretty big job. And a big team of clerks, we are told. He's just a little old man, just like Balwer, very unassuming. And he gives Elayne a lot of news, including the fact that, some sort of mineral called alum has been found on one of her estates. Just to remind you that Elayne is a rich bitch with
many estates.
Many estates, and just as a stroke of luck, something has been found that they can now sell in order to get the financial backing of the bankers in Andor. And Nori's, super excited about this, because he's like, I just love to go to the bankers and be like, if you don't give us money, then I'll go to Kyrian. And they'll be like, no! French! We hate the French! Even though Elayne's about to become the queen of the French.
Which is a stupid plot, too. She's like, my dad was French. That makes me queen.
No.
Well, lots of people have French dads.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard. He says that the gold can even be used to back the academy, which Rand established in Camelin, and which Elayne, in a classic Elayne move, has decided is not going to be part of Rand's legacy, it's going to be part of her legacy, and named after Morgoth.
Yeah, the Academy of the Rose.
Yeah, which Rand is a petty bitch in a lot of ways. I do not think he would be mad about Elayne taking the Academy from him.
Yeah.
So I will be mad on his behalf. That's such an ungracious thing to do.
I know, especially,
because she understands the intent of it.
Yeah, if she was just like, Rand can't have a weird school in the city, but she's specifically like, I know this is part of Rand's legacy, but fuck my boyfriend's legacy.
Yeah, but this is for me, psychologically. I need to have a reason to have hope after the last battle. And it's like, so does Rand.
What do you think? She's like, in case Rand breaks the world. I'm like, yeah, the person who might destroy the world deserves to have more hope about the world after he possibly destroys it than you do.
It's so fucking rude and thoughtless.
It is
so inconsiderate.
Ungracious is such a good word for it. It's just it can belong to Elayne's insistence that Rand have nothing to do with Camelin is just ridiculous at this point.
I know, at a certain point you go from it being a rational enough, if a bit girl bossy thing, to be I need to be responsible for this city without just having a powerful man appearing to be behind me pulling the strings, and just accepting the fact that the world is changing. Other countries are going through transitions. Kyrian and Tyr and now Ilion don't really look anything like they did 10 years ago, and you are just going to have to go with the flow a little bit and accept that the Dragon Reborn is changing things.
Yeah, she has a comment later in the chapter where she's like, Rand is out here acting like king of the world. And I'm like, yeah.
He is. What do you want? If you wanted him to not be king of the world, you should have done something back when he was conquering Tyr. But I guess it only mattered to you when it was your country.
Your country. Be like, maybe you shouldn't take other people's countries.
Oh, well, maybe you should have said something earlier.
So I hate her. I hate her, you guys.
She's so
this is now actually Everybody Hates Elayne, a Wheel of Time podcast.
Really, it's pretty hard not to make that transition. Especially because Rand, I think, becomes, in some ways, more insufferable, but in other ways, more sympathetic as the series goes on.
Yeah, as things get more intense around Rand as the series goes on, I think it's fair to say. I'm only not even through book 10. I can count. But yeah, as things get more and more intense and more fights happen, it also, maybe it just seems this way because we spend such huge chunks of time with characters. It feels like we're getting a little bit less of Rand. It's just how it feels, even if it, like, page count-wise or point of view-wise isn't the same way. And it's a lot easier and more interesting to deal with Rand as he influences other people versus, like, Rand himself.
Yeah, I agree. I also just think Rand struggling more and more, obviously with encroaching madness is a much more interesting plotline than some of his earlier stuff where he was just sort of like worried about going mad, but now he's like, maybe you actually are going a little mad. You're hearing voices, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing, yeah.
Or maybe it's just that the trauma has gotten so gnarly at this point.
He also is a deeply traumatized character at this point, which of course makes him more sympathetic because it's like, now your bad choices are connected to the bad things that have happened to you. You're not just out here making bad choices.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to explain what he's doing.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. It's a lot easier to understand where he's coming from than when he's just in the Stone of Tear being like, I'm going to resuscitate a child.
But here we are with Elayne, who suffers at least one assassination attempt per book, which I think tells you all we need to know about her efficacy as a ruler.
Everyone's like, please.
Everyone, please die! And yet she does not become more sympathetic.
No.
And in fact puts herself in most of these situations. Which is partly Robert Jordan's writing. He loves to make Elayne specifically look stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nori tells Elayne that the White Tower, you know, Aleda's folks, have declared that Rand is in fact the Dragon Reborn, and that no one should try to approach him, unless it's, like, through the tower. And Elaine's like, oh, that'll thrill him.
Yeah.
And Nori's like, I know, right? That'll be fantastic.
Can't wait.
He also is like, also, he might have gone to the White Tower. No one knows he's missing because, his palace in Kyrian got blown up. And Elaine's like, what? And he's like, I know, right? And she's like, okay, well, he probably isn't dead. And Nori's like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't believe that man is dead unless I was 3 days with the corpse.
Yeah.
And Elaine's like, was that a joke? And he's like,
also a Jesus reference.
You know, he's like, first of all, it was a Jesus reference. Think of that. But second of all, it was not a joke. I'm dead serious. That man's terrifying.
Yeah, Helen Warren doesn't joke. He's too busy running a country.
Yeah, Jesus. He gives her some news from various correspondents. We were told he's not an actual spy master, although Elayne will sort of gently push him in that direction as the later half of the series goes on. But he does have pen pals, more or less, in other cities. Amongst the reports are the fact that of all the rulers of the Borderlands are missing.
She's gone.
And we saw in Path of Daggers, sorry y'all, but in the prologue of Path of Daggers, we got to be with all the rulers of the Borderlands as they congregated, and for reasons that were not made clear to us at that time, we're all moving south.
Yep.
So that's the status that's coming back around. And he's also like, and there's some stuff going on with King Rodrin over in Murundi. I don't know, maybe he's gonna do something to Andor, but we can't really do anything about it because you're not the queen, so he can refuse to accept any messages from you. And Elaine's like, okay, well, I don't know about the Borderlanders. It's probably to do with Rand, because Rand sucks. And I'm like, why are you dating him then?
Yeah.
She's like, but I do know about Murundi, and that's to do with, and like, there are some lords over there who are part of it, and Talmonese' Dragonsworn army. This is another thing that happened in Path of Daggers. Egg and the Aes Sedai met with some Andoran nobility as they were crossing through Andor. And not terribly significant, mostly boring, but except that it did happen out on a big ice field, which I always thought was very cinematic and fun.
Yeah.
But Talmonese was there, You may recall that Talmanes and his army of Dragonsworn were, per Egg's wishes, sort of trailing the Aes Sedai's army to sort of motivate them to move toward Tar Valon. But Talmanes, when he makes his single appearance in Path of Daggers, informs Edwene that he does not want to travel any further north because he is worried about Mat, because Mat's Taviran influence is sort of exerting itself over Talmanes specifically, and most of the men in the Band of the Red Hand, they're all like, we're worried about Mat.
Yeah, we're gonna go back south.
So we're gonna go back south, and we're going to let I don't remember if they were hired by the King of Murandy or like some Murandian lords or something, but it is so insignificant.
Yeah, they're working in Murandy to basically like put pressure on other factions in Murandy.
As mercenaries, but like not a lot of fighting, pretty low stakes
Yeah,
stuff.
they're just kind of there. It's more like intimidation work.
But that's your boop-a-doop-boop-boop Talmanes update.
It's so nice when he appears, though, because Egg is just, like, sitting there being totally ignored because she's not exerted her war powers yet. And up she looks and across the room.
Across the pavilion, leaning against a pole, like a coiled whip. I love that.
Oh, I know.
It's so fucking sexy.
And you're like, hello?
It's Talmanes, and he's just, like, there. And you're like, God damn it. That's the most beautiful man.
That's the most beautiful man. And then he's like, I'm really just feel like Mat's energy whatever, and I'm like, you're in love with him.
Yeah.
Just admit it.
The gays. It's the gay feeling.
He's like, I just feel a feeling.
It's the gay agenda.
South. I'm like, yes, that is the gayness inside of you. What a sexy man.
Anyway, Egg's knowledge of this, which is just luck, because, you know, she still meets with Egg until we're on Riyadh, as we get into later, sufficiently impresses Nori that he informs her that some Kyrianan people are, like, reaching out, wanting her to take the throne and also offer their support in Andor. And Elayne's like, well, obviously that can't happen, because then it will look like, you know, a foreign influence on the succession, so I also have to politely reject them, da-da-da-da-da. But she leaves this meeting being like, okay, maybe Nori is a little bit on my side. He seems to have been ambivalent toward her at this point, but she made enough intelligent remarks in this meeting. I don't know what has happened in their previous meetings.
Where's Kyrian?
But now Nori is kind of like, whatever, I'm willing to work with Elayne.
Yeah.
He says that she reminds him of Morgoth, which, from the time I've spent with Morgoth, is not as complimentary as one might think.
I know.
The woman's insane.
It would be very funny if Elayne was like, oh, Hal Nori's on my side, and he said that as, like, an absolute read.
You remind me of your mother, the woman who ran this country into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're just gonna take it even further. Subterranean.
I think it would be funny if Nori just, like, got poached by some other...
Yeah.
If Rand... Here's the actual late plot I want from The Wheel of Time. I don't want the Shanshin. In fact, I just want Rand to be not having to deal with the invasion of the Shanshin, but just, like, focused on getting more and more countries on his side and, like, supporting him. And I want him to, Goblin Emperor style, just, like, be building an extremely efficient household and poaching people from other people. So he's like, I will take Hawan Nori. He'll be my accountant. I'll take Sebin Balwer. He'll be my spy master. I'll take fucking Talmanes.
Yeah. He'll be my general.
He'll be my general. Matt's like,
but he's mine.
But he's my boyfriend. And Rand's like, he is playing a 2-part role. If I have him in my hands, then you will come to visit.
Yeah.
And occasionally do things for me.
Yeah.
Hostage situation.
Holding Talmanes hostage.
So now we get the midday meal, which, as I'm sure you were about to refer to, is just casually about fat shaming.
Yeah.
Rain Harfor has sent these delicious, you know, they're intricately described dishes for a pretty well-balanced meal.
Yeah.
And Elayne is like, it's so annoying that she does this. She knows that in the midday I only eat bread and broth, which is like what people in a dungeon eat.
Yeah. She has this comment about how Linny would always say, a full meal at midday makes for like a dull head in the afternoon, one of Linny's dumb sayings. But Elayne seems to connect this to the fact that Linny is very thin and all of her current maids are very fat. Or are fatter than Linny.
Yeah. Comfortably padded women.
And it is just like so much of it is so fucked up. Like the fat shaming is fucked up. The fact that Elayne thinks she can't eat is fucked up. The fact that she thinks having a full meal will dull her wits.
Which I think is supposed to be, like, connected to the idea that, like, any rich meal you're going to, like, it's like that post, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, like it's
haze.
gonna make you sleepy.
But it's like, you can have the self-discipline to eat good food at lunchtime and not overeat. And anyway, sort of everyone just gets sleepy in the afternoon regardless of what you eat.
Yeah.
That's what siestas are for. And maybe just listen to your body,
Yeah,
I think the real thing worth noting is that as we are more and more frequently with Elayne and the Camelin succession plotline, a subplot is always going to be about her relationship with food. Specifically, like, once she gets pregnant in this book, in a few chapters, and everyone knows she's pregnant immediately, people are constantly trying to monitor her diet, and she is pushing back or not pushing back variously. And there's a point, partly, and this is something we get with Egg too, as these people are updating us to the fact that food is spoiling as they're getting closer and closer to the last battle.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
And we don't get sidebars like that about the food going bad with Rand, Mat, or Perrin, because food does not go bad around Rand, Mat, or Perrin. That's part of their Taviran influence, which is sort of referenced more directly in Perrin's plotline. But I do think with Elayne specifically, and it's like Nynaeve's obsession with dresses, Robert Jordan is just like projecting this thing he thinks about women onto his women characters. He's like, women are really preoccupied with food and their diet, right? So I should make Elayne really preoccupied with food and have this really weird and her weight.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And I'm just like, none of the men are thinking about this stuff.
Well, and it's one of those things that I simply do not, this is definitely not the case in general, because men and anyone of any gender can suffer from bad relationships with food, eating disorders, all of those things. But the socialization of women in particular, if you've been socialized as a woman, you have such a particular relationship with food and your weight that it's true that it's true what Robert Jordan is saying. Like, I don't know a single woman in my life who has not had comments made about her weight or what she is eating or whatever, and that really starts to fuck with you. It is not something that men are qualified to write about, because it is not just like these are very large, like, male women, male female binaries. I just think this is something men can't write about with any nuance. It was always played off as a joke. Women are concerned about what they eat, ha ha ha, and it's like, that is a deeply psychological thing.
Yeah.
That needs a lot more unpacking than Elayne just being like, I only eat broth at midday so I don't become sleepy or fat.
Yeah, it's just like a societal trauma that's been inflicted upon women.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So, like, I don't know. If you don't know enough about it to recognize that, then shut up.
Because it's also one of those things that don't need to be in a story. I read tons of books where it's never commented on that people are eating, and it's not a big deal, because I assume they are eating because they are still alive.
Yeah, I don't need you to, like, talk about every time a character eats something or takes a shit,
Yeah.
These are just normal human functions.
Yeah, I just, like, fill those in.
Yeah, but so much of, like, Elayne and Edwine's days are structured around meal times and stuff like that, which is just a very different thing from, I think, Mat, Rand, and Perrin, our main male characters, whose, plots and, chunks of time are sectioned more around, are structured more around action.
Yeah.
Things that they're doing.
Yeah, like, they don't have to have these constant touch points of meals.
Yeah.
We don't have to constantly be reminded that Egg and Elayne are just, like, not eating.
Or getting dressed. We're constantly dealing with Elaine's wardrobe changes.
And I'm like, I don't need to know.
Yeah, she went and changed her clothes. I don't need to know what she's wearing 100% of the time. In fact, I actively wish I did not know what she's wearing.
Yeah.
Because then I have to waste valuable brain
being like,
function, being like, what's
where's
that look
the
like?
embroidery? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Anyway, get fucked, Robert Jordan. Just being like, haha, isn't it funny that women don't like to eat? No!
Anyway, Elayne's drinking her broth, and,
Dialen kicks the door open.
so sad. And drinking her tea, which she's like, it's nice and minty. How would you ever trust mint tea again after what happened to you?
How do you
Fucking
drink, like, broth and peppermint tea? That is
I know.
such a disgusting combination
insane.
to me.
Absolutely. The weirdest thing that happens.
The weirdest combination of flavors. I know people eat, like, mint jelly on stuff, but, like... Like, the meaty flavor of broth with, like, the very, like, particular flavor of mint tea sounds really unsettling to me. Whatever.
But yeah, Dialen kicks down the door, you're so right, and is like, guess what? The Borderlanders are all in the forest.
All of them.
All of them in the fucking forest. And Elayne's like, ah, dang, Rand, at it again. And it's like, he didn't do this.
He did not do this.
It's not his fault. I mean, eventually we will find out that the Borderlanders have gone south to find Rand, which is such an insane subplot for them to do.
Yeah, they're just like, we're gonna take all 4 of our countries and march hundreds of miles.
Abandoning our posts by the Borderlands.
Abandoning our very important mythological duty to guard the Borderlands.
And they're like, we just have to find Rand, who can teleport. Just message him and be like, hey, yo, can we set up a meeting?
Elayne will also, in the next book, in Crosswords of Twilight, give them false information about where Rand is.
Yes.
Just extending this plot indefinitely.
I know. Awful. But Elayne's like, oh, that's super weird. And, like, before they can get farther than that, she realizes that she's feeling incredibly sleepy and, you know, stiff. And is like, oh my gosh, I've been poisoned. So she's like, I've been poisoned. And Dialen, like, jumps up grabbing a knife.
Yeah.
And Elayne's like, oh, if it's finally going to happen, she's finally going to kill me.
Yeah, I wish she did.
I know. Dialen makes her move. Dialen could have killed you at any point.
I
Elayne,
know.
it's not hard. You're
apparently not.
walking around without guards. But then Dialen starts screaming for help. And some guys enter, who Elayne at first assumes are Dialen's compatriots. I guess those things happen in reverse. Guys enter and Dialen starts screaming for help. But she holds them off, I guess, long enough for Hatchetface to enter and kill them, and Elayne faints. She comes to in bed, surrounded by Aviendha, Brigitte, and Nynaeve.
It's a long time she is unconscious.
Yeah, the whole afternoon, we are told.
Yeah, she wakes up, she's got, like, hot water bottles all around her, and she's in a dark room with Nynaeve, Brigitte, and Aviendha.
And Elayne's like, is Dialen okay? And Nynaeve's like, yep, I had to heal her, because she took a knife wound and lost a lot of blood, but, you know, she's okay. And Elayne's like, wow, I guess she really proved her loyalty. This scene is mostly fraught with Brigitte, Aviendha, Elayne, and Nynaeve's usual sort of bickering and back and forth nonsense, but the main points are that Elayne agrees to bodyguards. And Brigitte specifically says that she's already sort of picked out some women that she wants to do it, and that she wants it to be women, because women can go places with Elayne that male bodyguards wouldn't be able to go, and because they will have the advantage of being underestimated, is her logic. And she says we will actively play into that by, like, giving them fancy dress uniforms and whatnot. She doesn't really know who to make the captain of Elayne's guard, though, and Elayne is like, oh, what about that guy who saved me? And Brigitte gives her his resume, which includes the fact that he, pinches women, you know, assaults women regularly. She is like, a cold-hearted fellow, though he smiles a lot, mainly at women. He pinches serving girls, and he's tumbled 3 in 4 days that I know of. He likes to talk about his conquests, but he hasn't pressed anyone who said no. Now, clearly in Robert Jordan's mind, and I guess in Hatchetface's mind, the fact that Hatchetface has not outright raped anyone means that these women wouldn't find him untrustworthy. When all of that behavior, red flags.
Yeah.
Red flags everywhere.
Yeah, like...
And women would know that.
Yeah, it's very silly for Elayne to hear that and be like, not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, put him in charge.
He's deserved it. It also is very, like, this is an issue with, like, the omniscient narrator, but we learn very quickly that this man is a serial rapist. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons he took this job in order to get close to Elayne is because he was promised that he would be able to rape her.
Which is insane.
Which is disgusting. Absolutely not a character Robert Jordan needed to create, but that is for future discussion. But yeah, it's like you've got this man who assaults women, has been sleeping his way through the palace. Not inherently a bad thing, but the way that he's talking about it is obviously
very
like,
bad.
I don't respect these women.
Yeah.
Just like a shitty dude. And Elayne is like,
promote him.
Promote him, and I will tell everyone he's the father of my children.
Which is just like, oh yeah, I know, that's another insane plot point that we will get either later in this book or in the next book, which is all just like manufactured so that Elayne has to have this guy be close to her and has to put up with his constant harassment, which Robert Jordan just seems to enjoy having her in that situation. It's really creepy. I hate this man.
I do. I hate him so much.
And I don't even know if I'm referring to Robert Jordan or Hatchetface. They're both bad.
Anyway, we go to Teleron Riyadh.
Yeah, after some fighting about it, Elayne and Nynaeve both go to Teleron Riyadh to meet with Egg. They update her on what has been happening in Camelin, and Egg gives them a few updates on what is going on in the Aes Sedai camp, which is important mostly because Egg, as far as I know, does not have a point of view at all in this book.
I don't think so.
She's sort of like Matt in the last book. We're not getting any direct interactions with her, except for in scenes like this one. Edwene tells them that the Aes Sedai haven't made any serious forward momentum, that she is still having to deal with a bunch of flack from the sitters. In Path of Daggers, she got war powers. That was the major plot point that she'd been building to. But this basically ensures that she has direct authority over everything pertaining to the war, because she got the sitters to officially declare war on Elayne specifically. So that has eased some of her authority issues.
Yeah. But
it is still a problem. Of course, no one respects her, really. Although they are underestimating her less now, I would imagine. But the problems she brings up mostly are that they have too many novices, because also in Path of Daggers, Edwene opened the novices book, basically saying we will accept any woman who wants to learn how to channel into, and who can be taught to channel, regardless of her age and situation. We will accept her as a novice. So apparently there has been a huge influx of people, including women old enough to be grandmas. And the problem is that none of these novices are getting promoted to accepted because they need the special terangrial, so there are still only 16 accepted trying to handle all these novices, and the full Aes Sedai don't want to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. Edwene also lays out her plan to incorporate the kin into the White Tower structure. Her idea is that the kin can be a sort of retirement plan for Aes Sedai, which is not an inherently bad idea, it would say, especially because Edwene insists that the kin would maintain their own traditions and culture, even though that would mean Aes Sedai, who have been Aes Sedai for possibly hundreds of years, would then be at the bottom of the pecking order once they're in the kin. But Edwene says women should have to take the oaths on the oath rod if they want to be Aes Sedai, but they can be released from the oaths if they want to retire into the kin, but that would also mean they're no longer Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Because the point that has been slowly building up for the last few books is that taking oaths on the oath rod halves your lifespan. People who can channel seem to be capable of living hundreds and hundreds of years, up to 600 or 700, which is how old Rhiannon
Corley.
Rhiannon Corley in the kin is. She's the oldest. Whereas most Aes Sedai, people like Vandene and Adelius, who look ancient, are only 200 or 300 years old.
Which is still
so
insane. Old.
Yeah. And Elayne and Nynaeve were like, we don't want to take oaths on the oath rod. That would shorten our lives. And I'm like, at a certain point, Listen, I read Tuck Everlasting. I think that at a certain point you'd be like, I don't want to live 600 years.
Yeah, it's just...
Everyone I know is dead.
Yeah, their, like, obsession with being like, why would I cut my lifespan in half? You'd still live 300 to 400 years.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it. No one should be forced to cut their lifespan in half, but I'm also just like, I personally would not find a problem with it.
And you also only recently learned that taking the oath rod shortens your lifespan, which is a ridiculous plot point in general, I think. I don't really understand the point of it. I don't really understand the point of this, how long do people who channel live plot, but maybe I'm just not quite there yet to the, like, fruition of it.
Nope, there's nothing.
Oh, great, super. And then I just don't get it.
It's pointless.
So, anyway.
Yeah, I would say that's not an inherently bad idea that Edwene has working within the structure, you know, that Robert Jordan has given her. I do think it is, interesting in a neither good nor bad way. I don't really have an opinion on it. That this channeling woman's life cycle has been so neatly divided into pre-channeling, childhood, being an Aes Sedai, which is your sort of working adult woman, and then retirement, which traditionally women have these really, not women, people who menstruate specifically have these really solid, like, thresholds.
Right.
For puberty. And then menopause.
Right.
So, I just think those sort of hard lines are an interesting reflection of that.
You're so right, bestie.
I don't know, though. I think it would be funny if the Black Tower had a retirement
Yeah, I was just
system,
gonna
too.
say, wouldn't it be funny if they have their equivalent of the kin, and it's just like these old men.
It's just a...
Dammer Flynn out here.
Yeah, it's just like a golfing course.
Amazing.
They just go to golf.
They just go to golf.
Yeah.
They can just take all of, the White Cloak place, Amadicia. They can just have Amadicia as a golf course.
It's just sitting there.
They all just go to Amadicia.
Our retirement in Amadicia.
It's like Florida.
It's better than what men have traditionally been doing, who find out they can channel, which is going into the Blight to fight the Dark One.
I know. The Ale are
Haunting.
hardcore, man.
Yeah. This meeting ends with the girls realizing that they are being eavesdropped on. First by a guy who's just standing there. I think it's so
good.
This is meant to be, what's his name? Esam / Luke. Yeah, Lord Luke. God, we haven't seen him in books, you know?
Yeah, so I'm like...
It's been literal books.
I was reading this and I'm like, who the fuck is this?
The telltale sign is that he looks like he could be Rand's uncle.
Yeah,
and
I'm
Elayne
like...
has the only funny line in this section where she says, if Rand had a mean uncle.
He does.
And I mean, he is Rand's uncle, so that's the hilarious part.
He's Rand's mean uncle.
He is Rand's mean uncle. But I guess he's there eavesdropping on them. I don't know what Luke takes away from this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're just girl talking, whatever. We also find out that one of the Black Asha ladies who was in Camelin was eavesdropping, but that there was also another unknown person.
Yeah.
So I guess everyone is fucking in Teleron Riyadh listening to these meetings. After this meeting is broken up, we switch points of view to one of the Black Asha women. We're going to be reintroduced to 6 Black Asha ladies whose names and personalities are mostly irrelevant. 4 of them are just in Camelin. They have set up shop here. They were in Samara with Moghedien, or, you know, kind of in that area, but Moghedien went missing once she was wounded in Teleron Riyadh, you know, and Moiraine, God, Nynaeve and Elayne captured her. And these women have been just sort of, like, leaderless ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably would have just stayed in Samara, except that one of their warders was chasing after them. Which is an interesting point, you know? A lot of these women have warders, and not all of them are also dark friends. The woman narrating apparently has 4 warders, And she tells us that only one of them is a friend of the dark, but the other 3 she thinks she can manipulate into helping her anyway.
Yeah, it's this fascinating plot about this one lady's order is like, I know she's Black Asha, I'm going to kill her no matter the consequences to me. And
it will kill me, but I will kill her.
This is fascinating.
And I'm like, what's his story?
Yeah, why isn't he the main character?
Kenneth, I think is his
Kenneth.
name. I want Kenneth and what's Saritha's order's name?
Ken.
His name's Ken.
Ned. Sorry.
Kenneth and Ned.
I was thinking of Kenneth from 30 Rock. Kenneth and Ned should team up, buddy cop duo that turns into a little bit of romance.
Yeah. Woof.
Buddy cop to lovers. There's a
new
romance genre for you.
The one we've all been waiting for. It's kind of like what that, little cowboy and Augustus had in Night of the Museum. Yeah. That's very buddy cop to husbands.
It's Octavius.
It's Octavius, Mary.
It's exactly what they have going on.
God.
They can even be played by Owen Wilson and Hank Azaria.
These 4 women are just sort of in Camelin, being nefarious. They haven't done anything yet. They will eventually, though, intersect with this other group of dark friends / Black Asha, which includes Millie Skane, which is the most nefarious evil lady name, who's masquerading as Lady Cheyenne.
Sure.
We last saw her in Ebu Dar. Matt, saw her, that, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, meme set of the 2 guys looking at each other from across a room, just realizing that the other one is there. Matt did that with her while he was at the race, remember?
Oh, yeah, and he's like, she tried to kill me.
He's like, she tried to kill me. And now LaShawn was like, okay, good luck, bestie.
Have a good time. Yeah, and then he chases her to what's-his-fuck's house.
Yeah.
And then Samael shows up and they're like, I think that's Matt And Samael's like, not important.
Irrelevant.
Completely.
To my plans.
Irrelevant.
Good luck, though. Yeah, she was last in Ebu Dar, but has now moved to Camelin for whatever reason. And under her control is Phalion, the other Black Asha lady who was in Ebu Dar. Apparently Moradin specifically put her in charge of Phalion. And they are working with this other Black Asha lady who has one of those M names with a bunch of L's. So they're not really worth keeping track of. But she is the one who says, oh, actually, there's a Black Asha sister in the palace. Which brings us back to who killed Adelius.
Who killed Adelius? Finding a murderer.
The murder making a murderer. Catching a murderer.
Catching a murderer. Adelius edition. Adelius is such a sick name.
I know, it is cool.
Assuming we're pronouncing it right, but...
Oh, and all this is, they're just chatting when who should come in but Hatchetface being like, guess what, guys? The plan worked. And that's when Robert Jordan, really wanted to write but didn't write. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I know we've already talked about this at length, but it makes literally no sense for Elayne to be like, this man saved my life. He should be the captain of the bodyguard. It could have literally been Halwyn Nori out there rushing in. Would you make Halwyn Nori the captain of your bodyguard? It's just like a time and place thing.
Yeah.
It's very stupid.
He's like, yeah, it's just luck that he was there. And Elaine's like, no, he should be the captain of my guard as, a reward. And I'm like, personally, if I saved your life, Elayne, the reward I would want would be to be far away from you.
Yeah, actually send me out of Andor entirely.
Yeah, give me a different assignment so I don't have to see you every day.
It just is really, it's a very, very thin plot in a larger plot, Camelin, that is already full of very, very thin plots.
Yeah.
So it just starts to grate after a while.
It's like gluten in bread. You just hold it up and you see the light through it. Rapid fire. Favorite character, least favorite character.
Am I allowed to say Halwyn? I mean, I did already say the people who tried to kill Elayne, but that was a joke.
Yeah, you're allowed to say Halwyn Nori.
Okay, it would definitely be Halwyn Nori.
Yeah, he's iconic.
Yeah.
I'll say Elayne because I think it was very brave of her to rush in and save Elayne from a knife, even though she didn't have to.
Yeah.
And I think she's really cool and doesn't get as much nice things as she deserves.
I know.
I think someone should give her, a spa package.
That would be lovely.
And maybe she should be Queen of Andor. I know that's not going to happen.
I know.
And she doesn't want to be Queen of Andor, so I guess I understand that. It's one of the reasons I like her.
I know, her just, absolute rejection of power.
Like, fuck that.
Is really interesting.
Very Cincinnatus thing going on over here.
I love you, Dialen.
I love you, Dialen.
And I love you, Halwyn Nori.
Least favorite character?
Oh, Hatchetface.
It has to be Hatchetface.
I fucking hate
He's
that
just
man.
right there. We might have to eliminate him from the pool later.
If we get up to like 5 times at Hatchetface, we'll have to take a break.
He's just so gross, you guys.
He's disgusting.
And the worst part is, we all know a guy like that.
Oh, yeah. As soon as Brigitte, anyone who says he talks about his conquests, I'm like, he's out.
Buzzer.
Yeah.
Gone.
He's been voted off the island.
You
That's a
have been voted off the
disgusting
island.
way to talk about women.
Yeah.
In general, especially women who had sex with you.
Icky.
Foul.
And Robert Jordan, you didn't need to make that character. It's pretty gross that he was rattling around in your brain. I mean, I shouldn't cast aspersions. Writers can have gross guys rattling around in their brain, but then you put him there.
Yeah, and then you put him there.
But then you put him right in front of me.
Instead of just being like, you know what?
We don't need that one.
He doesn't need... That one can stay in the brain.
Stay in the drawing board.
Sometimes things
Hatchetface?
can stay inside of our heads.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't... You don't have to write the man every time. You don't have to write the torture porn every time it enters your head. Sometimes you can just be like, click, that's the lock on that.
Be like, yeah. And then you're done.
And then you're done. And then
I frequently have ideas that I don't write down.
Yeah, I have ideas that I reject every day of my life.
Yeah. I'm like, you know what that is?
It's called intrusive thoughts. Be driving along. What would happen if I pulled the emergency brake right now? And then I'll think, I better not find out.
Yeah, no, same. What happened if I closed my eyes while I was driving? What?
I think I could make an accurate prediction.
Maybe I won't do that.
Maybe I won't. Okay, that was a weird tone to end on, but I'm sticking to it.
Yep.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song, and to our patrons on Patreon, and our followers on social media.
Yes. You're all very pretty.
Kisses. Yes.
I do. You guys, this one is maybe the most tragic one I've ever said.
Oh no.
I was
said
having
some bad ones.
I know. I know. And that's how upsetting this is to me personally. I was having a really bad day yesterday, and I forgot to play Wordle. So I lost my Wordle streak. And I'm really upset about it. I had a 30-day Wordle streak from when I first started.
Oh my god.
Like, I first started it one random Saturday morning, and I played every day
like
since.
we all did.
And I lost it.
I'm
So now I had another bad day because I lost my Wordle streak.
Yeah. We should
Ridiculous.
invent a time machine.
Just for that.
Goodbye, everyone.